Hello everyone! Today we're making donuts, homemade donuts, so they're gonna be like the best donuts ever. So we gotta start with our dough. It's a yeast raised dough, and then we're gonna fry them after because donuts need to be fried. Do not fool yourself into thinking you can bake a donut that tastes as good as a fried donut because it's just full of lies. So we're gonna start with our dough here. I have 2 cups of flour, got 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna put, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt and 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. I'm just gonna give this a light stir to get it all mixed in together before we add our wet ingredients. Then I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla. This is just artificial vanilla extract, but if you have real vanilla, use that. If you don't have vanilla, just leave it out. Got 1 egg. Then I have 2/3 of a cup of milk that's warm, and then I melted in 1/4 cup of butter into that. You don't want it to be boiling, but you want it to feel warm to the touch. Pop that in there. And then in our mixer with the dough hook, we're gonna mix this. It's probably gonna be about 10 minutes. It's gonna be a more softer dough, but we'll get mixing and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, our dough has been mixing for about 10 minutes now. If you can see in there, it's in a ball in the middle. It's not sticking to the side. So that is exactly what we want. So I'm gonna stop that. And then I'm gonna pull this off. I'm gonna put it into a greased bowl with a lid, and I'm gonna let it sit at room temperature for about an hour or until it is all doubled. So it is a little bit of a softer dough, but that's gonna give us a nice fluffy donut. So pop that in there. I'm gonna put this aside at room temperature for an hour, and then we're gonna kind of flatten it and put it in the fridge. So we'll get there in a few minutes. So our dough has risen and it looks so beautiful. So I'm gonna pop this out onto a piece of saran wrap, flatten it out, and then put it in the fridge for at least half an hour. We just wanna firm this dough up a bit so we can cut it out more easily. So I'm going to pop that in the fridge, and then we'll pull it out once it's cool. You can also do this part the night before, then pull it out in the morning and have fresh donuts for breakfast. But I'm gonna have them this afternoon, so I'll see you in a little bit once this guy's all chilled. All right, our dough has chilled for half an hour, so now I'm gonna roll it out to about 1/2 inch thickness, and we're gonna cut out our donuts. So I don't have a donut cutter. If you have one, use that, but just use what you got. So if you just have a glass, you could use the rim of a glass to cut them out. I'm gonna try to make donuts with holes in the middle, so I have a lid of a jar and the bottom of a piping tip. So I'm gonna try to cut those out that way. And then whatever scraps you have left over, you can squish them together, let them rest for probably about 15 minutes, and then re-roll them and cut those out as well, or just fry them up as little random chunks of deliciousness. And then once these are all cut out, we're going to set them on a tray that's lined and has a little bit of flour, and then I'm going to cover them with a dish towel, a clean dish towel, and let them rise for 30 minutes to an hour. I kind of want them to double in size, but it will just depend how warm it is in here. So I'm gonna get cutting those, and then I'll see you then. So I got 7 donuts, and then I just saved the donut holes because who doesn't love a Timbit? So I'm covering this with a cloth, leaving it at room temperature. I'm gonna check it in half an hour and see how they look, and then we're gonna fry them. While our donuts are rising, I'm gonna get our toppings all organized. So in this bowl, I have 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. So I'm gonna just stir that together like a cinnamon sugar like you get on those little mini donuts. So that's really delicious and easy. And if you have leftover cinnamon sugar, just keep it in a container. You can use it for cinnamon toast, or to put on top of a muffin is really good. And then I'm gonna do also a glaze. So I have 1 cup of icing sugar in here. I'm gonna add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I'm gonna start with 2 tablespoons of milk, but just add as much milk or icing sugar as you want till it comes to the consistency you want. If you want a light glaze, make sure it's really liquidy. If you want it to be that thick icing on top, just add more icing sugar. So I'm just gonna stir that up and then they'll be ready to go once we're ready to use them. My glaze is all mixed up here. It's pretty liquidy because I want to do like a glazed donut where it's just a thin film on the outside, but you can definitely make it thicker or flavored or something like that. And then while my donuts are doing their final proof, I'm just turning on a pot of oil. So you want a nice heavy duty pot and at least 1 inch of oil at the bottom. I'm using canola oil. You can also use shortening or peanut oil, something with a really high smoke temperature. So not an olive oil, that would be very smoky, but canola oil works great. So getting that heated up, we want it to be heated to 350. Look how beautiful these donuts look. They're all raised up. I've got a hot pot of oil here with a thermometer. The thermometer is reading 350, which is perfect. If you don't have a thermometer though, you can just start with your most ugliest donuts and just drop them in. And then if they cook like in 20 seconds, that's gonna be way too fast. But if it's cooking for about 45 seconds to a minute per side, and it's a nice light golden color, that's perfect. The larger donuts, it will probably take about a minute per side, maybe a minute and a half, but we're just gonna gauge it and see. And then make sure you use a metal utensil to check on them. Don't put plastic in here, it will melt. Be careful, this is really hot. So once it fries, we're gonna pull it out, put it onto a wire baking tray that's over a baking mat, so it will drip on there, and then we'll toss it in our toppings. All right, this looks pretty perfect here. So I'm gonna start doing the big ones and get them frying. So I've got some of our donuts fried up here. If you want to do it in cinnamon sugar, it's best to do it while it's still relatively hot. So I'm just going to toss it into my cinnamon sugar here before I start my next batch. Get it all coated up there. Oh yeah. And then just remember, this is still really hot. So I'm just going to put it back onto my tray, and then I'm going to do some glazed ones. Look at these beauties. So excited to eat these. So I dunked the ones that I wanted in cinnamon sugar in when they were warm, so all the cinnamon sugar stuck to them. And then I have our glaze here, and I'm just gonna glaze the other one. So kind of dunk it in and spoon your glaze on, flip it over, make sure it gets all covered. And then just like a Krispy Kreme donut. Then just let it sit back on your wire rack or just eat it right away. Awesome, so that was donuts, fun and exciting, delicious, my favorite treat to eat on my birthday. So now my birthday's come twice this year. Awesome, well thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys tomorrow.